Many people in the West do not really understand the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood, the motherlode of all the dangerous organizations, including Hamas, by the way. And they think, no, this is freedom. Let people talk. I say to my European friends, please, please understand the difference between freedom of speech and hate speech. I need to answer a very important question that many of you might have. Why should we trust you? Why should we listen to you? Why should I believe in you? Because I'm a credible source that you want to listen to. I'm fully from the Middle East, born and raised in Saudi Arabia, to an Egyptian Saudi family, living in the UAE for a long time, knowing the dynamics of the Middle East. And the views that I have today are not the views that I had when I was a teenager. I was born and raised a very religious Muslim. I was very radicalized in Saudi schools. Saudi schools, the curricula there were different from what we see today. The school's system today is very modern, very amazing. The Crown Prince, may God bless him, made great changes. But the curricula that we grew up with were very anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-West. But all of that changed 15 years ago after I did a homestay program in France, and many of my views changed with knowledge, facts, and the truth. So when I say I'm the credible source that you need to listen to, it comes from a real good ground of knowledge. So back again, why are you then disappointed at what happened in the UN? Didn't all the European countries and many Arab countries rally up for the recognition of a Palestinian state? Yes. Are you against your fellow Arabs to have a state? Of course not. But let's remember one thing. The call for a recognition for a Palestinian state while a war is ongoing and while hostages are still kept by the party that started this war emboldens the party that started this war of holding up the hostages and disrupting the negotiations. I really wished that those countries that rushed into recognition of the Palestinian state would make it conditional, especially France. You know why? Because this is the country that I was de-radicalized. This is the country that I was de-radicalized in. And it's so funny to see a country that de-radicalized Loay is becoming more and more radical today. So I'm saying I'm disappointed because the only sane voice that I heard about the recognition of the Palestinian state came from the Prime Minister of Singapore. And I commend him because he said this recognition should be conditioned to releasing the hostages, having no more Hamas in the strip of Gaza, and having a Palestinian Authority or a leadership that is willing to recognize Israel as a Jewish state living side by side with it. I'm not against my Palestinian brothers. I always say this again and again, I believe in the right of the Palestinians to live in dignity side by side with Israel. But this will never happen when you have radical fanatics that we know very well, far better than anyone in Europe, with all due respect, that we know their ideology so well. This will never happen as long as they are in control. And recognizing a state while they are in control is really emboldening them. This is why it was a bad step. But amidst this kind of disappointment, I also have optimism. And I found optimism in that week as well. I'll tell you where. First, the speech of the Indonesian president, the biggest Muslim country in the world, a devout Muslim, a true devout Muslim, an amazing person who spoke about the necessity of having peace with Israel. He also spoke, by the way, in favor for the recognition of the Palestinian state, but he spoke also about the necessity of security for Israel, of having the children of Abraham reunited, of having Muslims and Jews to build the Middle East together. And he ended his amazing speech with the word shalom, or as he said it, shalom. He said it in a very nice way. It was like, I didn't see that coming from the president of the biggest Muslim country. That gave me hope in that week. The second thing that really gave me hope is a meeting that took place a couple of days ago by an Arab leader that I really want you to look up to. He's an amazing Arab leader. He's an amazing Arab leader who prefers engagement over avoidance. He prefers dialogue over evasiveness. His name is Abdullah bin Zayed, the foreign minister of the UAE. He met with Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And in that meeting, he conveyed the messages that we had in the Arab world, that many people had in the Arab world, about annexation, the necessity of having more aid into Gaza, and also the necessity of ending the war. This comes from the foreign minister of the country that gave more aid to Gaza than any other Arab country. More than 42% of aid came into Gaza Because, by the way, many people don't appreciate that, because of the Abraham Accords. You know why? Because the Abraham Accords allowed the UAE to communicate with Israel, to coordinate with Israel. The UAE managed to build a field hospital inside Gaza, delivered more aid into Gaza than any other state. But he's saying that we have to give more aid into the Gazans. We have to give more help to the Gazans, and we have to stop the war because it is not damaging only the Abraham Accord, it's also damaging Israel. The UAE said, we will not isolate Israel. We built a very great relation with Israel 5 years ago under the what I would call the greatest breakthrough in American foreign diplomacy, the Abraham Accords, and we choose to leverage the Abraham Accords and making it useful even in our conflicts. Some people might say, well, if the UAE had some occupied territories, the UAE wouldn't deal this way. I say, well, sorry to break the news, the UAE has 3 islands occupied by Iran: the Greater Tumb or Tumb al-Kubra, the smaller Tumb, Tumb al-Sughra, and the island of Abu Musa. But what did the UAE do with Iran? Championed dialogue over endless conflicts and wars. This is the mentality of leaders who turned the desert into skyscrapers. Imagine if that was the mentality of the leaders of Hamas. Imagine if that was the mentality of the people who are ruling the Palestinians and who don't really care about their people. Imagine how Gaza would look like if this was the mentality of the rulers of those people in Gaza. So this what gave me hope in the middle of this disappointment that I had. And let me reaffirm to you, I always say to my pro-Israeli friends, not all Palestinians are Hamas. Not all Gazans are Hamas. When they say, well, even in Nazi Germany, there were Germans who helped the Jews hiding. What are those Palestinians? And you're not following the news well. You know how many Gazans Hamas executed? In their channels, they say they were collaborators with Israel. You know what was the real accusation? Helping the IDF finding the hostages, or helping the IDF defeating Hamas. They paid the price. And in their name, I say, we should never generalize on all the Gazans and say all Gazans are Hamas and all Palestinians are Hamas. This is a big mistake that many pro-Israeli voices say online. So I'm not against the Palestinian people, of course. None of the sane voices are against the Palestinian people as people. We really want the Palestinians to live in dignity, as I said, side by side with Israel, not instead of Israel. So how do I see things moving forward? Let's say that this war ends. The day after, I believe the day after should be focused on education and rebuilding the Muslim-Jewish relations. I'll give you an example. In the year 2020, the head of the Muslim World League, his name is Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa, visited Auschwitz camp with AJC, the American Jewish Committee. That visit was remarkable because a Muslim leader, a faith leader from Mecca, Saudi Arabia, stood next to the Jewish leaders and said, never again is never again, in Auschwitz. And that was the moment where you had so many hopes in the region. And that was in January 2020, 8 months before the Abraham Accords. I'll be very honest with you, the Muslim-Jewish relations were damaged after October 7. The real reason, you have to know this, October 7 happened for a single purpose. Sinwar didn't care about his people, didn't care about the casualties, how many people would die. Only one reason, to torpedo the Saudi-Israeli normalization, to torpedo any future normalization between Israel and any Muslim or Arab state. There were so close talks between Indonesia and Israel, between other Gulf countries and Israel. And he thought of one, I will torpedo this. The real focus of many peace builders should be that we should fail Sinwar. And we should fail those who want to torpedo more peace agreements in the future. Let's get the facts straight. The future of the Middle East is for Israel to exist, Israel to thrive alongside its Arab neighbors. Arabs have to understand that. And the Israelis have to understand that too. And this starts not only with education. Of course, it starts with education. And this is a very important thing because I was not radicalized because of my family. I was radicalized because of education. I was taught to hate Jews. Jews first, of course, Christians second. So you're not as bad. But Jews first, Christians second. Atheists, communists, everyone else on third. But Jews first. I am working with many people, and many peace activists also in the region are working on many projects that would de-radicalize the future generation of Arabs in the Arab world by teaching them how common Muslims and Jews are. the areas of commonalities that we have are extraordinary. If you have a bird's eye view with all the knowledge about the commonality between Muslims and Jews, and you would say, why are these two people fighting? They have so many things in common. And we can have this commonality as a base for our future collaboration. Second, you remember how I told you how I was de-radicalized? When I met a Jewish family in 2010, 15 years ago, I was 27, now I'm 42. So I was 27 at that time. I was not that young. That was the first time I met a Jew in my life, 27 years. And I can tell you that many people who hate Jews in the Arab world, or maybe also in every other part of the world, haven't met a Jew in their life. So we are working on a project to bring Arabs from Kuwait, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Oman, with Israelis from Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, and we put them in Africa to work on projects related to feeding elephants, caring about the environment, helping the safari in Africa. When they go back home and when they hear people badmouth Jews or Israelis, they would say, hold on a second, I have an Israeli friend. We work together on a project. And they are not what you're saying about them, have fangs, are evil, have tails. No, they're not. They're ordinary people and they're amazing and we've worked together. This will dismantle hate. This is what we need to focus on because we have to be prepared for the day after. The day after is nigh. I don't want to disappoint you. I don't really represent the mainstream majority in the Arab world. I represent a growing minority that is putting their heads above the parapet. But hopefully, will become one day the mainstream. Do not forget that many movements in history started as a minority, but became the majority. And I dream of the day that, inshallah, many people who believe, Muslims who believe in peace with their neighbors, Jews, Christians, and other minorities will become the majority. Yes, it will take time. It will take time. It will take effort, tremendous effort. But the question is it worth it? Absolutely worth it. My family are very supportive of what I do. Especially my mom, God bless her. And I always joke with my mom when she said, what does Torah that you are obsessed with or the Bible say about dealing with your mom? I always say dealing with your parents. I always say exactly like the Quran, but in Hebrew, it says, Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha le'arichon yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. Honor your parents or your father and mother so that the Lord your God will prolong your life in the land that he promised you. So I said, well, that's good. Yeah, not as bad as we knew about the Jews. She's very supportive of what I do. She's just concerned about my security. And I tell her, my mom, you have to know one thing. It's a mission worth not only fighting for, worth dying for. Because this is what Abraham, our forefather, would love to see his children working on their commonalities fighting over their differences. It's not an easy mission, but it's a mission that I am so proud of embarking with the weapon that we most need today, which is social media. So this is why, please, the first thing you have to do after this session is to follow me on Instagram and X, like, comment, and share. And let's keep this optimism because I am very optimistic that things will be better in the future. And I will conclude with one thing that I remembered when I saw the speeches in the United Nations. Many people who are boycotting the speech of the Prime Minister of Israel, who spoke badly about Israel, or many of them even said that Israel doesn't have, not explicitly, but implicitly denied the right of Israel to exist. They forgot that in the very venue that they speak, there is a quote from a prophet who lived in the land of Israel, called it the land of Israel. And he said, nation shall not lift up sword against nation. They shall learn war no more. That's in the United Nations. It is so disappointing that if they read this verse and they read two verses before that, the same prophet whom they're quoting glorified Zion and mentioned that the glory of God will come and shine from Zion. How disconnected people from reality are and how educated we need to be in order to confront the lies and dismantle hate. Thank you so much. We can take questions.
Yeah, we can. I'll introduce. First, I'll say thank you so much, Loay.
Thank you.
Shukran. I think you bring a message that is very important for the Arab world, but also for Europe and also for the Netherlands, where we are today. Seeing, you touched upon it a little bit, the growing hate due to either not having enough knowledge or being infused with hate from other sources. We're opening the floor for questions, and I'd like to start with one question that was really I really wanted to ask you while you were speaking. I remember that in 2017, the UAE foreign minister warned against analyzing the Middle East from through European glasses, through European lens. What are your thoughts about that? And what would be your message about that to the audience today, but also to leaders and young people here in Europe?
Sheikh Abdullah is a prophet. He really prophesied what's going to happen in Europe, a prophet in that sense, of course. He talked about how Europe is opening the doors to those who misuse the liberal freedom, those who misuse the liberal freedom and turn against the very societies that welcome them. This is why he said that extremism will come from the very countries that open the doors to those who misuse the liberal freedom that you give them. And of course, he was talking about the radical Islamist groups. And I want to say one thing also. I don't really believe in the term that is called Islamophobia. That is preposterous. There is anti-Muslim bigotry. You can say anti-Muslim bigotry. There are people who hate Muslims for being Muslims. That is true. Like in Christchurch in New Zealand, 2019, you had an armed man who went into a mosque in Christchurch who killed Muslims for being Muslims. That's absolutely bigotry. But if you are afraid of those who are overtaking your cities, shutting down roads, shutting down highways to pray, this is not a prayer. It's a show of power that I'm here, I'm going to take over, I'm going to dominate, not assimilate. And unfortunately, many people in Europe don't get it, that they are opening the doors to those who don't really appreciate the chance that was given to them. And this is what Sheikh Abdullah said. People think that they have enough knowledge about Islam and about our culture more than us, and you're making a grave mistake. I'm not saying double down on immigrants. I'm just saying you have to be very careful, and you have to have the due diligence of dealing with these kind of topics, because it could backfire, and it backfired in so many areas. I feel sometimes, I'll be very honest with you. Let me tell you a story. When I was in Canada, and I went to pray in a mosque, I saw a mosque that had so many radical slogans. And I couldn't believe that this is Canada. Well, I myself was terrified. And Frank, I said, Habibi, let's go back to the hotel and pray. You don't need to pray in this mosque. So I'm just saying that many people in the West do not really understand the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood, the motherlode of all the dangerous organizations, including Hamas, by the way. And they think, no, this is freedom. Let's let people talk. I say to my European friends, please understand the difference between freedom of speech and hate speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Loay. Questions? One here.
We have a microphone.
The microphone is on its way.
Thank you for your beautiful words.
Thank you.
What did the prophet say about how it would end in Europe?
Well, he said, I'm so sure, it could end well if you wake up. If you wake up and realize the danger and deal with it wisely. But if you indulge, it will worsen. So there is a chance to recover if you wake up. But if you don't, it will be worsened.
Questions? Yes. Messiah is already on its way.
Yes.
After that, he's coming to you.
Thank you so much. I'm here in the back.
I cannot see. Hello there in the back.
Hi. You described some differences about religion and accepting differences in religion, but I think it's much deeper. And as someone who comes from the Middle East, notice those differences here. Those are differences in culture. And it starts from family, but then also outside schools. And I wonder if you can give some advice to the Europeans here, including myself. How can we bridge those differences? Because I think if we don't do it, we stuck in two different parallel educational systems, and we have actually what we have now in Europe.
So I agree with you to some extent, but I want to tell you one thing honestly. Many people are radicalized because of the religious views and interpretations that they are taught in school. Many, more than even tradition. But I'll give you an example of why many people in the Middle East, and I'm sorry to say this is a very uncomfortable discussion, but I always say it because I love to say facts as they are. Why many people in the Middle East really hate Israel. Because many religious interpretations teach them to hate Jews. No matter how anyone would deny it, no, that is not true. It is true, 100%. And there is a Christian anti-Semitism and an Islamic anti-Semitism. Christian anti-Semitism that started in Europe, blaming Jews for for killing Jesus, who was also Jewish, by the way, FYI, for those who are saying, yeah, he was also Jewish. And the Muslim anti-Semitism also comes from this part as well, the European, plus all the conspiracy theories about the Jews and about the Zionists. I was brought up with the idea that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a factual book. Sorry to disappoint you. It is still the most selling book in many Arab book fairs. In 2024, it was the most selling book in the Arab book fairs in Tunisia, in Cairo, and in Riyadh. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And some of the people come to me on Snapchat or Instagram. Hey, how could you defend your friends? Look at the protocol number 1, protocol number 2, protocol number 3. Jews control media, Jews control money, Jews control the financials of the world, Jews control this, Jews control that. I say, do you know how this book started in Tsar's Russia? Do you understand the background of this book? No, it's a factual book. It is sold in the book fair of the Riyadh or Tunisia. So I want to stress that lots of hate comes from religious interpretations. How can we bridge this gap? By working with the moderate Muslims who don't really adopt to these interpretations. As I gave you an example of the Muslim World League, a very moderate Muslim organization that believes in coexistence and believes in the right of Israel to exist, not the majority, not the mainstream. But building bridges with these voices would encourage others who are silent, not because they are afraid, because they are afraid of being intimidated, to speak up. So I would build the bridges with Muslims who are willing to listen, who are willing to collaborate on this kind of coexistence, and then we would encourage other Muslims to blend in. But we have to identify the real roots. I disagree with those who say it's just about culture. Religious interpretations. Religious interpretation is a big reason for this kind of hate.
Okay, Loay, in between the flags here on the right side.
Loay, I'm a great admirer of yours. Been following you for quite some time.
You share and comment or no?
Yeah, you can say that.
Starting from today, share and comment.
Yeah, there were plenty more good people on the internet, but you're one of them. And I have a particular question when you said rebuilding and re-education in the particular region, let's say Gaza and the West Bank, because the West Bank is a bit of a problem as well. What party is going to be responsible for that? And will the Arab League have a play in this as well? Because, well, in fact, in the region.
I believe the UAE will play a big part of that. I believe many moderate Arab states will play a big part of that. By the way, if you have a look, it's remarkable. If you have a look at the religious curricula in Saudi Arabia today, I couldn't believe what I read about, for example, why Jews are not working on Saturday. Because God created heavens and the earth in 6 days, and the day of Shabbat, God honored this day. This is why our Jewish brothers are not celebrating are not working on that day. This is why they have the Shabbat that starts from Friday evening to and this is not what I went through. When it comes to Jews, this is not what I was educated. So Saudi can play a role, UAE can play a role, and you have to teach people not to hate Jews. I'm sorry to say this, I'm re-engaging again in uncomfortable discussions. When September 11 happened, I felt so indifferent. 19 hijackers struck the Twin Towers, 15 from Saudi, 2 from the UAE, 1 from Egypt, 1 from Lebanon. Not only me, many of us in the middle felt indifferent. So what? But this is what we were taught. Aren't those infidels? We were taught to hate infidels. We were told that America is the imperialist power that is invaded Iraq, bombed Muslims, massacred millions in Sudan. So that was the usual outcome. We were taught this in school. So what would you expect from a Gazan who is taught from the very young age that Jews are the enemies of Allah, and you must hate Jews for the sake of God, and you must kill Jews to go to paradise or heaven? Would you expect him to be a peacemaker? Of course not. But if you teach that child the commonalities that you have, that you honor Friday and your Jewish brothers honor Saturday because of this and that, like what's happening in Saudi curricula, which I was so shocked which is great, by the way, but I was so shocked when I read it. This is how you have different generations that would believe in peace and coexistence. The second thing, it's very important to have a top-down leadership, a leadership that would enforce these kind of policies. This would make the change quicker. But of course, if you have a curricula, this would be the long-term solution. If you want the short-term solution, bring a Palestinian leadership that doesn't believe in the eradication of Israel and the annihilation of the Jewish people, because I don't really trust the current Palestinian Authority. I don't trust the Palestinian Authority. that some people in our region call Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And I don't trust also Hamas, of course, obviously. So both parties are even playing with words. I've watched an interview by one of the Palestinian Authority members. He said, October 7 was miscalculated. I felt he really wanted to say, why are you losing Hamas? Why you Hamas are, we wish that Hamas would win, but miscalculated. It was this, and by the way, many of them say something in Arabic different from what they say to you in English. Reminds me a lot of Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera Arabic, the spokesman of Al Qaeda and Hamas. Al Jazeera English, defender of LGBT community. So this is the kind of irony, and this is the kind of hypocrisy that we're facing in our region. So yes, I do believe that many moderate Arab states, especially Saudi and UAE, can play a positive role in the curricula for the future Palestinians in Gaza.
All right, we're going to try and squeeze in 2 more questions, so try and keep it short and succinct.
Thank you so much for what you had to say. Thank you so much for that. I had the honor to work with a number of peoples from your region, Baluch, Ahwas Arabs. You are well aware of that. Of course, the Kurds, the Syriani, etc. Also with the QSD, SDF.
Yes.
What strikes me, and maybe you recognize that or not, and I would like to check with you, what strikes me on all these occasions is that we have a foreign policy here in the West that prefers extremists in countries like Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, over normal people like you. Loay being kind of an exception. So do you see that, or am I wrong?
I see something crazier in the West. A marriage between radical Islam and radical left. I don't get it. I really don't get. I don't get how radical Islamists aligned with the woke movement. It is so bizarre. Like when I see some people in the gay pride march for the support of Hamas, do they know what's going to happen to them if they ever choose to live in Gaza? They would be thrown off the tallest building that still stands in Gaza. They don't really get it. This what really baffles me in the West. And I think because many, in my own analysis, many people in the West have good hearts. Many of them are good people, but they don't get it. They are confused and they think what they're doing right now is right. When I hear people, I speak in so many American universities and so many Americans, good Americans, white Gen Zs tell me, no, Hamas is freedom fighters, resisting group. And I tell them, have you really read their charter in Arabic? Do you really know what they stand for? And in which dictionary, freedom fighters or resistance kidnap toddlers? In which dictionary, freedom fighters go to a music festival and rape women? In which dictionary, freedom fighters take Holocaust survivors as hostages? In which dictionary? No, that is not true. No, that is not true. They filmed that. And the fact that you're telling me it's not true doesn't make me surprised when I hear people who deny the Holocaust in Germany, of course. So I see worse than that. I believe because many people in the West are confused. And this is why it's so important to listen to the voices from the Middle East. Listen to those who know. Listen to the growing minority that is putting their heads above the parapet, who would tell you the naked truth.
One more question? Is there one more question?
Yes, one more question.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming. My name is Daphne Vandenberg. I'm in charge of public diplomacy in the embassy.
Protocol number 2, Jews control the yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's me. I would like to ask you something for me, but also for all the young representatives I see here. There are a lot of students and a lot of people from the new generation of leaders that are very involved in the social media. I would like to ask you for some insights and tips on how to battle on social media, because the Telegram, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, it's a nightmare these days. It's all full of anti-Semitism. It's all full of lies, and the numbers are not on our side.
So my greatest tip, grow your alliances, work with your non-Jewish voices, not only Christians, also Muslim voices. You have great allies. Speaking of allies, you have great allies in the UAE, in the Gulf, in the Arab world, who are willing to work together. Grow your alliances with your non-Jewish voices that would get the message across. And there are so many people who are willing to do this, not because, by the way, not because of Not because we favor this government of Israel or that government. No, because we believe that the only way forward is to have a permanent peace in the region. So collab. I would say this to my Jewish friends in American universities: collab with your non-Jewish voices. There are so many amazing non-Jewish voices, Christians and Muslims, and even other faiths as well. Druze. You can make your alliances grow with this collaborations in social. I'm talking social media term collaboration, like collab. I think this is the best way. This is the best tip that I would ever give to the Jewish community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.